There are many different and conflicting ideas regarding its portrayal. It is seen as a fertility symbol, mother goddesses, paleoerotica, gynecological primers, and self-portraiture. Venus figurines can be categorized in different types, varying by its body posture, anatomical emphasis, and surface decorations. Depending on the location, different features of the body are accented. In Western Europe, the thighs and hips are emphasized. In Eastern Europe, breasts and stomachs are emphasized. Central Europe, accentuations fall in between. Detailed studies of Venus figurines have found new insight on the textiles and basketry. There are 3 depictions of clothing, including many kinds of headgear, a body band of fabric, and a skirt. Some types of textiles seen in Venus figurines involve single-ply, multiple-ply, knotted netting, braided cordage, and non-heddle loom woven textiles. Composed out of plant fibers, they are extremely detailed and intricate. If decorated, the attention is focused on the clothes rather than the body, contrasting greatly with the detail in the statues of men. Although it is not a medium for social identity of women, it can point towards social differences. It gives evidence that it was the Paleolithic women who were most likely the weavers and basket makers in Grecian times. On ethnographic records, there is a close association of women with plant harvesting and processing, along with transformation of plant products into more complex structures through weaving and processing of woody materials into baskets. It is representative and often associated with power, prestige, and value. These figurines embody the different functions and roles of women in the Stone Age culture. They are essentially the representation of the earliest evidence of textile production and reflect the technology associated with the later Mesolithic and Neolithic periods.
In the next part of the video, we will examine 2 studies done that directly analyzes the Venus figurines. Study 1 was done using 161 heterosexual men and women, ranging in age from 18 to 58. We selected a subset of Venus figurines consisting of images of 14 Venus figurines and a single modern sculpture of a female body. Each image was presented individually and in random sequence. Participants viewed each image for 15 seconds, during which they were asked to provide ratings of age, pregnancy status, and attractiveness. Participants classified each image as depicting a woman belonging to one of 4 age groups: adolescent, young adult, middle-aged, and old-aged. This table shows the results of the study on data measures including attractiveness ratings, waist-to-hip ratios, perceived age, and pregnancy status. There was a negative relationship between waist-to-hip ratios and attractiveness judgments for the 15 images. Study 2 involved 35 heterosexual men ranging in age from 23 to 44 years. They completed eye-tracking experiments in which they viewed images of Venus figurines and a modern woman. 2 images of Venus figurines were used for the eye-tracking study. Image number 1 of the Willendorf Venus and image number 14 of the so-called Brassempois Venus. Data referring to the eye movements on the Venus figurines were compared to those made on a photograph of a modern woman used in a previous study. They underwent eye-tracking trials in which each image was presented individually in random order on the computer screen for 5 seconds. At the end of each presentation, participants were instructed to rate the image for sexual attractiveness using the same scale in study number 1. The next measure used in study number 2 was eye position and eye movements. These were determined by measuring the corneal reflection in dark pupil with a video-based infrared camera and an infrared reflective mirror. The stimulus images were divided into 6 body regions for subsequent analysis of eye tracking data. In each of the 6 regions, 2 dependent variables of eye movement were measured: number of fixations and amount of time spent examining the area. This picture shows attractiveness ratings made by men who viewed the Willendorf Venus and the so-called Brassempois Venus, and the image of a modern woman during eye-tracking sessions. This picture shows an analyzation of eye-tracking data and numbers of fixations made by men who viewed the Willendorf Venus, the Brassempois Venus, and the front-posed image of a modern woman. So what is the purpose of these studies? We can use this data to examine the inspiration for the creation of the figurines. We can suggest 3 possible roles for Venus figurines. Firstly, a minority of images may have been intended to represent young, sexually attractive adult females. These might truly be considered as Venuses in the conventional sense. Secondly, a subset of figurines represented changes in body shape during pregnancy and might be symbols of fertility. Thirdly, the figurines often depicting middle-aged women might not have been Venuses in any modern or conventional sense. They may, instead, have symbolized the hope for survival, for the attainment of a well-nourished maturity during the harshest period of the major glaciation in Europe.
In this part of the video, we will look at two studies concerning Venus figurines. The first study used 4 raters, 2 male, 2 female, and the author of the study is a 5th. In the first study, the researcher decided on 5 body attributes of the Venus figurines that would be used to compare them. The author filled out a table with the attributes of a woman for each of the age groups. Each of the 5 attributes were then put on a scale from 1 to 3. 1 meaning the feature was that of a younger woman, and a 3 would mean that you would expect that trait on an older, post-productive woman. Differing answers between raters were used to eliminate ambiguous figurines. Only when 3 of 5 raters were in agreement as to both age category and pregnancy status was that Venus retained for the dataset. When there was a greater disagreement between 5 raters, a 0 was placed in the category column and the Venus was no longer used. An X was used when the raters could not come to a consensus on a specific assessment such as the face of a Venus. The procedure retained 132 of the original 188 Venuses in the study. Venuses represent a wide age span appears to be well established by the above data, but they do not show whether Venuses proportionally represent the age structure for upper Paleolithic adult females. For the study, it was assumed that women began childbearing at age 15 and ceased at age 35. This resulted in a reproductive span of approximately 20 years. From these endpoints, the 3 desired reproductive-related categories were established. 10 to 14 young, pre-reproductive, between 15 and 35, middle reproductive, and over 35, old, post-reproductive. The hypothesis of this research is that the Venus represented the full lifespan of the adult hunter-gatherer woman. So what was the point of the 2 studies? It shows us that Venuses represent not merely pregnant women, but women through their entire adult age span. Since the largest group of Venuses represents non-pregnant adult females, while the smallest group represents pregnant adult females, there is no evidence to support an interpretation focuses exclusively on the fertility function. The Venuses apparently represents womanhood, not just motherhood. The fact that the statuettes depict generalized female forms and not personifications of specific individuals leads additional support to a gender-wide interpretation.